Hi and welcome. This is such a great pleasure for me to sit here with you, Jonice, because this has been fantastic. We have been on a weekend training.
Yep.
And just to introduce you to the viewers and also to the listeners, that Jonice Webb is a psychologist and has been practicing for over 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're the one that basically coined the word childhood emotional neglect.
CEN for short.
CEN for short.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about what is it actually?
Childhood emotional neglect is a parent's failure to respond enough to the child's emotional needs. And it sounds extremely simple, and it is. However, it has very impactful results on the entire life of the child throughout adulthood. If your parents fail to respond enough to your feelings, as a child, your brain pushes your feelings off and away behind a wall. And what then happens is you lose access to them, and growing up through your whole adult life, you don't have proper access to your emotions, which we all need in order to survive and thrive.
Yeah. And is it possible for people to recover for CEN?
It is absolutely possible. Essentially, if you have CEN, you end up going through your life feeling a deep sense of emptiness. And it's because you're missing something vital, a vital life force that is supposed to be, that's built into you for a reason. And your body knows something's missing. So you end up feeling empty. And it also makes it really hard to express your emotions to other people, which limits your relationships and your friendships, keeps them from getting as much depth as they could have. So it's very easy to feel kind of alone and disconnected and empty if you grow up this way. But you absolutely can recover. I've been working with people since my book came out in 2012. I've done work with hundreds, maybe thousands of people at this point on walking them through the steps of recovery, and I've watched people change dramatically just by going through the steps.
Yeah. And it's really important to know this about the feeling of emptiness. And I got to say that you wrote this wonderful, wonderful book, and I'll show this to you. And I recommend everyone to get it because it made such a difference to me. It has made a huge difference to all my clients as well, and to everyone out there. Just get it because it should almost be taught in schools.
Yeah, I agree.
It really should. It's
Yes.
called Running on Empty. This is the first book, and the other one is called Running on Empty.
No more.
No more.
Transform
Because
your relationships.
That's it. Because that's what it's all about. And transforming, the first relationship we need to transform is ourselves, the relationship we have with ourselves. So you talk about this thing about emptiness. And I work with addiction in many forms. And tell me, what is this with the emptiness? Why is it that we either turn to food, to being too busy, to social media, or to sex, or to drugs and alcohol? Is a lot of that the underlying reason for having to feel that emptiness? Is that CEN?
I really think that most addictions are driven by emotional neglect from childhood. And most people would never think of it, but it is the truth. And it's because when you grow up with your feelings ignored and you wall them off and it leaves this empty space, you really don't have access to all of your emotions, but you still have the emotions. You just may not realize it, or you're not dealing with them and using them the way they're meant to be used. So you have this empty space that's looking to be filled, and you have all of these emotions that are walled off, that are interfering in your life and sort of driving from the back seat, that you're not even aware there's a driver back there. And so those emotions, when you feel angry, when you feel hurt, when you feel sad, you don't really have the skills and the knowledge to know what's going wrong. What am I feeling? Putting words to that and managing and listening to what that feeling is telling you, because all feelings are an important message from our bodies. So because you don't have access to work through and deal with your feelings, they drive you. And a lot of people who grow up with CEN end up just choosing some way to cope. And your way might be to have a drink. It might be go shopping. It might be have something to eat. It might be use a drug. And the more you use that coping technique, the more entrenched it gets, and it becomes your go-to. It's really just you're using it to manage your feelings. And it really doesn't work, but it feels like it works. So it's like an unfortunate positive feedback loop that really doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know that very well because I've used food for all my life. And it was only when I learned to actually look at my feelings instead of numbing them, is to feel them and move through them. And this is what we never learned as small children. We never learned to connect with our feelings because they were neglected from our parents. So when feeling came up from with a little child, being a little child, we never learned that, hey, it's okay to feel like that. And if we don't learn that it's okay, then we go to something else to stuff that down.
Yes, that's exactly right. When your parents see what you're feeling as a child, respond to that, and walk you through it, they are teaching you vital life skills. When they don't do it, you grow up without those life skills, and that is going to set you up to struggle for a lifetime because we all have to know how to manage our feelings.
That's exactly right. So we're so lucky that when we fall into your work, because you give such a clear direction of how we can actually get to the point where we can manage our own feelings, get to know them, and live a rich life. Because it's bad and good, so-called bad and good, but it's how we navigate our way through it.
Absolutely, and it's entirely possible to break through that wall, access the feelings on the other side, and learn all the emotion skills that you missed in childhood. It's all entirely possible, and I know this because I've walked so many people through it, and it's transformative. It really is.
So good, and it's so good to know that it's actually hope for all of us. No matter who we are, there's hope for all of us.
Absolutely.
As long as we do the work.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
It's commitment.
It's a commitment, yeah. And a lot of us as CN, CN people, we have this incredible need to look after other people. But it's to learn to look after ourselves.
First.
Yeah, and that's what your book is all about. Both your books are all about, so thank you. I'm so grateful for your work and certainly recommend your work to everyone. I really do, because your body of work, it's so simplified what you have done. And that brings me to the question, why is it that CEN is not widely known out there by other psychologists and other people that works with mental health? Why is it not known?
Really, it's because there are a bunch of reasons, but I'll give you the main one. It's because childhood emotional neglect is actually invisible. If you think about it, it's not something your parents do to you. It's something your parents failed to do for you. They failed to say, oh, I see you're having a feeling. Or what are you feeling right now? What do you want? What do you need? And if your parents don't do those things for you, you don't realize it. And you, even as an adult, looking back on your childhood, you might think, oh, I had a pretty good childhood, because you don't realize what you didn't get. And this has had the same impact on therapists. It's hard for therapists. Clients don't come in and say, I was emotionally neglected, because people don't realize it. They don't realize what wasn't there for them. And so therapists, I think, it just falls through the cracks. And it has forever.
Well, this is why we sit here.
Yes.
And that's why we need to spread this out there, because it's so important. It's so important. So thank you so much. And before we end, we can hear, the planes, and we can hear also the waterfall, because we sit in the redwoods. We've been very
so
lucky.
Beautiful here.
Yeah, and doing your work. So I hope you do many more workshops. That's for sure. But imagine that you were going to a deserted island in the Pacific Ocean. And you had the choice of 2 books. What books would you take with you?
That is a really good question. I really only read books once. I've never read a book twice, I don't think. So, but if I was only able to take 2 books, one would be Grapes of Wrath.
Okay.
Because I grew up in Oklahoma. And that book takes place in Oklahoma during the land paintbrush, and it really tells the story of all kinds of struggle and strife and effort, and it's really about people overcoming. And I read that book when I was in my 20s, and it had an effect on me. So it's really probably my favorite book. And I think I would want to get the New Yorker magazine. Does that count? That would be my other choice.
Yeah, and that's perfect. We sit there in the hammock. Yeah. I like it. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us, and I certainly hope that you will check Dr. Webb's website as well. And what is that?
Emotionalneglect.com.
Absolutely. So take care till we see you and we hear again. Bye-bye.